God is dead. With these three chilling words, Nietzsche didn't just light a philosophical fire. He sounded a funeral bell for the soul of modern civilization. But what did he mean? He wasn't pointing to the sky and claiming no deity dwells there. He wasn't mocking faith with atheist triumph. No, this was not celebration. It was a dirge. Nietzsche's voice echoed not with arrogance but despair. The world, he believed, had entered a spiritual crisis. One so vast, so all-consuming, we hardly noticed it had begun. We are still living in its shadow. In the marketplace of ideas, he imagined a madman crying out, "God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him." The people laugh. They don't understand. But the madman sees it clearly. Without God, we have removed the axis upon which meaning spun. What Nietzsche saw was not merely the end of religious belief, but the collapse of everything it once held together: truth, purpose, morality, direction. And now we drift. This is not just a story about God. It is a story about us. A story about what happens when the foundation cracks beneath our feet and the stars above us go dark. Are we truly prepared to live in a world without sacred meaning, or are we already there? Before Nietzsche's thunderous proclamation, the world danced to a divine rhythm. In ancient temples and medieval cathedrals, in chants under moonlight and prayers whispered at dawn, humanity believed life had meaning, because it was woven into the fabric of something greater. God, whether as Yahweh, Brahman, Allah, or the eternal Logos, was not just an idea. God was the source of order, of morality, of hope. In this world, suffering could be redemptive. Death was not an end, but a transition. The universe wasn't silent. It sang with purpose. From the Bhagavad Gita to the Sermon on the Mount, from Islamic Sufis to Greek philosophers, humanity found comfort in the idea that their lives were part of a sacred story. But then, a shift began. As reason grew louder, the sacred grew quiet. God was no longer at the center, but a character on the margins. The heavens began to dim and meaning started to drift. Yet before this unraveling, life had structure. Even fear had purpose. The stars guided both ships and souls. Nietzsche didn't just grieve a God, he grieved the meaning we once took for granted. The world before the death of God was not perfect, but it was grounded, and that grounding was about to vanish. The Enlightenment dawned, radiant and revolutionary. Human reason took the throne. Science expanded like wildfire. The mind became sovereign, and slowly, the sacred bled out. Newton's laws replaced divine will. Darwin's theory of evolution challenged the story of creation. The microscope, the telescope, they showed us worlds never mentioned in holy texts. The more we learned, the less we needed myths to explain. Descartes split mind from matter. Empiricism claimed only what could be measured was real. The soul became a concept, not a certainty. Religion, once the spine of civilization, became optional, and Nietzsche saw it all. But unlike many of his peers, he did not rejoice. He didn't see liberation, he saw devastation. "We have unchained the earth from its sun," he wrote. "Now, we drift." This wasn't just a cultural change, it was a spiritual earthquake. We didn't just stop believing in God, we stopped believing in meaning itself, and without that meaning, we stepped into a void, an infinite space with no center, a cosmos without a moral compass. Nietzsche's warning wasn't about belief. It was about what we were losing by walking away from the sacred. The death of God was not a moment. It was a slow bleed, a quiet unraveling, and it would leave us face to face with the abyss. What happens when the highest value collapses? Nihilism. Not just despair, but a creeping paralysis of purpose, a deadening of the spirit. Nietzsche foresaw it. A world where nothing is inherently true, where morality becomes opinion and purpose is a matter of taste. We live in this world now. We chase dopamine instead of destiny. We scroll endlessly, not knowing what we're looking for. We replace spiritual hunger with consumption, activism with outrage, meaning with distraction, and behind all of it, a quiet emptiness. Nietzsche called this the rise of the last man, the one who no longer dreams, who avoids pain, who seeks only comfort. The last man is not evil. He is indifferent. We have more than ever before, and yet we feel less. We achieve, but do not arrive. We speak, but do not say anything real. This is the abyss Nietzsche warned us about. It's not loud. It doesn't roar. It hums beneath the surface, dissolving meaning molecule by molecule. The death of God didn't create chaos. It created apathy, and apathy is far more dangerous than doubt. But Nietzsche didn't stop at the edge of the abyss. He dared us to leap across it. His answer was not to revive the old God, but to create something new, something forged in fire, not fear. Enter the Übermensch, the overman, the one who creates meaning from within, who doesn't inherit values but births them through strength, art, and will. The Übermensch is not a ruler but a visionary, a soul who says yes to life even when life says no. And then Nietzsche gave us a riddle: eternal recurrence. If you had to live your life over and over, exactly the same, every joy, every mistake, every moment, would you curse it, or would you embrace it? This question is not cosmic, it's spiritual. It asks, are you living a life worth reliving? If not, why? In a godless world, Nietzsche didn't call for despair. He called for transformation, to become the creator, to become the flame, to become the meaning itself. Look around. We have more comfort than kings once did. Infinite knowledge at our fingertips. Yet anxiety, depression, and existential dread are rising like tides. We are the most connected generation in history, and perhaps the loneliest. Nietzsche saw this coming. When objective values die, ideologies rush in to fill the vacuum. Politics becomes religion. Identity becomes dogma. Everything becomes a battleground. Without sacred meaning, we worship celebrities, algorithms, brands. Our new gods are digital, fleeting, and hollow. Carl Jung once said, "Modern man is in search of a soul, and that search is desperate." Nietzsche wasn't simply critiquing religion, he was warning of a world where we no longer know how to believe, not just in God, but in anything. Here lies the paradox. We killed God, but our hunger for transcendence never died. So, we resurrect him, again and again, in new forms, in ideologies, in science, in spiritual philosophies, in the quest for consciousness, in artificial intelligence. Maybe Nietzsche's greatest insight was this: even when we deny the divine, we cannot escape our longing for it. The question is not whether we will worship, it's what we will worship, and what we choose will define the soul of humanity. Can we live without a sacred center? Or must we become the very source of meaning we once searched for in the stars? Nietzsche's cry still echoes, God is dead. But perhaps it is not an ending. Perhaps it is a call to become what we once worshipped, to build new heavens within ourselves, to light a flame in the void, and dare to call it divine. God is dead, and we have killed him. When Nietzsche first wrote those words, the world didn't flinch, they didn't scream, they didn't weep, they laughed. But this wasn't a joke, it wasn't blasphemy, it was a warning. Because when God dies, meaning dies with him. This wasn't the death of a deity in the sky. It was the death of something much more profound. The collapse of everything we once believed gave life meaning. You see, Nietzsche wasn't celebrating. He was mourning. He saw the foundations of Western thought, morality, truth, purpose, crumbling into dust, and he knew something darker was coming. So ask yourself, what happens to a world that no longer believes in anything? Not in heaven, not in sin, not in destiny, not even in itself. We were not ready for that answer, and maybe we still aren't. To understand what Nietzsche meant, we need to see the world through his eyes. The 19th century, a time of brilliance, science expanding, machines humming, factories rising. But beneath the surface, something was dying. Darwin had shattered the creation story. Science was dethroning religion. God was becoming an idea instead of a presence. And people, they were drifting, not toward enlightenment, but into confusion. Morality that once came from divine command was now being questioned. Institutions were hollowed out, old truths no longer comforted. Nietzsche watched as modernity swept through Europe like wildfire, and in that fire, the soul of man was being burned away. He didn't fear atheism, he feared emptiness, a world where people had knowledge but no wisdom, power but no purpose, freedom but no center. He saw the storm before it arrived, and he screamed into it. This wasn't just about religion. This was about everything we thought was true. Without God, there is no absolute, no objective good, no cosmic justice.